name's Adject, and welcome to another devlog on Exper. I made some progress since the last devlog. Let's start with the animations. I began with an idle animation, since it was the easiest one to make. Then I tried to animate my character run. I didn't really like it, so I made a new one. This was basically my first time working with animations for a human character, and I think it came out pretty well. After that, I started working on the animation and in-game implementation for wall slide. That didn't really go well, and I consider it a bad move. I put wall slide aside for later and I focused on making the jump animation. It looked really nice in the pixel art editor, but I had to remove a lot of the segments, because I found out that some of them would cause the jumping to be unplayable. For example, the first 2 frames, which would play before the character jumps, would take around 100 to 150 milliseconds. It may not sound like much, but in-game it would really feel unresponsive. I think the jump animation in general was hardest to implement, because I needed to somehow predict when my character is few fractions of a second before reaching the top. But in return, the middle animation makes the jump look very much smooth. I wanted to animate some simple particles to make double jump look nicer. It was obvious the double jump doesn't happen in the real world, so I, in very much professional way, enriched it with simple electricity particles to emphasize that fact. Not that I encountered a bunch of issues on the way. Then came, I think, the hardest animation to make, and that was the so-called teleport dash I talked about in the last video. While working on this one, I found out that I have to redo most of my code, and so I did, and it paid off. Also, that made it possible to implement the working wall slide animation. Now that I had my animations implemented, I moved to the second part. I wanted to have a camera following the player, but I needed some tiles for the player to walk on. Problem was that I didn't know how I should stylize them. I figured out I could just quickly test out the most used composition of a tile, which would be nicely described as grass and rocks. I quickly made tiles that looked nice in combination with the main character, so I made the whole texture atlas and got to work. I feared that setting up the camera would be pain, but it was actually the opposite. I was like 2 clicks away from it. The real pain was actually setting up the background. Main idea of the background in platformers is to introduce depth to the scene, and you can do quite a lot of depth with just few 2D pictures. I made this background with trees, bushes and light rays being separate layers in the picture. As most of my tries on anything pixel art related, I ended up making a new background later on from what I had learned while working with this one. And oh boy, I did learn a lot. For example, same size of the background and screen is a dumb idea. Not only is it very repetitive, but also jumping kind of reminds you that you're playing a game. It also caused a loading issue, which I then solved by making the second background wider and higher. All of this was done by using the parallax nodes in Godot, which are cool but sometimes unpredictable. That made the setup harder, and at one time I tried to dump the idea of in-engine parallax background and make my own, which I also consider a bad move, and I ended up using the in-engine parallax backgrounds after all. Now I knew how to properly set up a parallax background, so I started working on something I could actually leave in the game. My main idea revolved around high and somewhat thin tree trunks behind the player, which may be the best to point out the idea of the main character being in a rainforest, or at least make it feel like that. I added some details, and after the coloring I had a background ready. Last part was a problem that I encountered some time before, and it was the teleport dash didn't look good with the camera following the player. But I found out that there is quite an easy fix for that, and that is by just allowing the camera smoothing in the camera node settings. This solved the problem almost without any issues. Well, this year was quite something. Let's hope that 2021 will be better for all of us. This devlog took me a while, but I'm pretty happy with the outcome. I have plans on what to do next, but I'm not sure what to start with first, so I'm not going to promise anything. My name is Adject, and we'll see each other in the next year.